Hello and welcome back to the meta64 podcast. This is a podcast where I interview creators about the creative process, what they do and how they do it. And I'm here after a solid 2 to 3 months of not being here with eyemoralize. Eyemoralize is an artist, mainly an artist on the internet. Made a couple animatics, I believe, and is also a close friend of mine. So hi, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
It's been a long time coming because I keep forgetting to schedule these correctly and get things ready beforehand.
I have
Oh,
been very excited to be a part of the podcast, talking about like my creative process and what has inspired me to become a creator and how I've gone about it. It's something I'm really passionate about because it's been a long time since I've joined the internet.
yeah. I really hope the questions I have for you then are going to hopefully tap into that enjoyment of content creation that you clearly have. But we're going to start off with some boring questions off, and then we'll get into the more fun stuff in a little bit. So, first off, who are you? What type of content do you create?
So I'm eyemoralize. I'm an artist and I create digital drawings, animations, animatics, basically anything in that kind of realm. And then I'm also passionate about music, but I don't really do any kind of like public creation with that, but I would like to in the future.
So, why do you create, and what's like the creative process? Like, don't go into too much depth because I do have a question where I ask you to go into super depth with this. But yeah, why do you create? What's your creative process?
So the big kind of core reason why I create is I like making things for others that will make them happy and that they can enjoy and just kind of something to like keep them going. That's been like my core reasoning. Um, and kind of, yeah, just, yeah.
And what's the creative process like for you then?
The creative process for me is really based around telling a story and kind of working with emotions. So I like to write out a story and then take things that inspire me and piece them together to make something creative.
Sick. What inspires you?
My biggest inspiration for the longest time have been just other creators and seeing what other people do and then challenging myself to do something similar. Most notably, my longest time inspirations are Jaden Animations, who is an animation YouTuber, very popular, and Rebecca Sugar, who is most notably known as the creator of Steven Universe.
Ooh, that's a new one. I never heard someone say they're inspired by a showrunner before on this podcast.
Yeah, so a big thing that I want to do with my life is I want to go to school to study animation, and then eventually someday I'd like to have my own cartoon. So somebody like Rebecca Sugar, as um, who is non-binary and also a queer person, and who was able to make a show that had such an impact on the world, was really inspirational for me, and really kind of just like the start alongside Jaden for why I wanted to make content and why I wanted to specifically study to become an animator.
So, how did you land on your current username and branding?
So the story behind my current branding is a bit of a funny one. I wanted to create a username that was a bit ironic. So the term moralize means to argue something in a more like superior sense, or to argue something that is not really morally correct. Um,
Okay.
and my persona has three eyes. It's kind of like their most significant feature. So I took out the I in the phrase I moralize with the actual term for an eye.
Okay, interesting. Right. Those are all the boring questions out of the way. We're gonna get into the more juicy stuff. So, what got you into art?
I think I've kind of always been into art. Even at a very young age, I love drawing, I love doodling. My mom was into art, and I have a very artistic side of the family from my mom's side. My uncle is a musician, and he has a band, and he works gigs. Um, and then my mom's father was also a musician and an artist, so it was kind of just like in my genes to be very attracted to the arts and everything. And I think in a way, art for me was just kind of a way to express myself because wording things has not always been my strong suit,
Mm,
even though English has been my strongest subject in school. But art, you're able to express things in a way that isn't necessarily right or wrong. With things like language arts, there is a strict set of rules that you're supposed to follow to make something supposedly good. But with art, there isn't really a rule book like that. You can kind of just do as you please, and people can't really tell you you're right or wrong.
Yeah. So, most of the art I believe you post on the unit has been fan art. Do you consider yourself a fan artist still, or are you starting to like branch out of a fan art phase of your life, part of your
I
life?
think I think I definitely still consider myself a fan artist. I'm passionate about making fan art because the things that I enjoy inspire me to create. But I do also think I'm starting to lean more towards now creating more original content because I've been starting alongside the classes I'm taking in my high school to create more original storylines and original characters. And I actually have a story in the works right now that I'm hoping to start kind of developing more publicly soon, just because it's something I've really been passionate about recently, and I think it's going to be something that people really enjoy.
Sick. What's the hardest art piece that like you had to make? Like, what's an art piece that just like kind of gave you art block for a solid amount of time?
I think it would definitely be a few years ago. I attempted at making a comic series for a Hermitcraft AU, which again, fan art, but it was going to be a twist on a story based on some story plots that were done in Hermitcraft. And I think the biggest challenge of that was making art in a way that could be seen as a comic format and really telling a story. Because up until that point, I was used to telling stories in art through just one single frame, which it's a bit ironic considering I want to go into animation, but it's just the way I've been doing things. So to have to create multiple panels that flow and all kind of have the same kind of consistency was a big challenge for me. And it's something I still haven't really been able to overcome.
Well, do you think you're going to overcome it? And do you have any like plans to find out a way to overcome like getting out of that single frame storytelling like mold that you're kind of stuck in?
Absolutely. I think I've been doing a lot more animatics recently, which is a lot closer to animation. And it's really been breaking me out of just doing one single still drawing to be able to tell a story. And I think I've been definitely improving. Um, and a big thing that kind of has helped me get into the process of making multiple frames is I actually go in my notes app on my phone. And when I'm making something to an audio or some kind of song, I'll write down each like lyric or phrase, and then I'll write down a description of what I see in my head for what I want to draw or what I want it to look like, so that I don't have to try and like internalize everything or just go straight into the drawing. I have a format that I can follow, and it's almost like a checklist, and then I can go back and puzzle everything together.
All right. Nice. So, for people who are just getting into art and drawing and just this type of stuff that you're also in, what's like advice that you have for people just getting into that?
My biggest advice is to go easy on yourself because no matter how much time you spend with other people, you are always going to be stuck with yourself. And the saying is, you are always going to be your biggest critic. But there's a big difference between hateful comments and constructive criticism. And if you're constantly only giving yourself hateful comments, it's going to be really damaging to you long term because you're going to be your biggest best friend because you're always stuck with yourself. So even when you're comparing yourself to other artists or even just other people in general, you have to remember that you don't have to be like other people. It's okay to take inspiration, but if you're constantly trying to copy someone or emulate what they're doing, you're never going to let yourself blossom. So you have to just go easy on yourself.
That's some really good advice, actually, because I think it can also apply to multiple other parts of content creation that aren't just art. I'd say it can also apply to like video creation and streaming as well, if you put it to that.
Absolutely. I mean, the term artist, I feel like a lot of people kind of misinterpret what an artist is because an artist isn't just somebody who draws. An artist can be someone who is a musician or a writer or a sculptor or a video creator, an editor. All of them are artists and they're all creators because at the end of the day, an artist is a type of creator, which I think on in social media, it's such a hard place to kind of judge like who's a creator and who isn't because at the end of the day if you're posting things online you're a creator and when people say like oh like content creators and then just streamers or just video creators or just artists you can't just it's so hard to put people into a box when it comes to creation.
I'd say. Um, where do you get inspiration for your art, and how do you do that?
I think I get a lot of my inspiration for my art from the things around me. So different TV shows, different video series, just like photographs that I see and like anything in the real world. Like I've there's been times where I've listened to a song as I'm walking home from school and I've gotten inspiration for something I could do with an original character of mine. And it's really kind of interesting being able to pull inspiration from just anything around you because you never know what's going to spark something for you.
Where no, sorry. What's a good counter that you found like to combat art block?
So I definitely struggle with art block a lot, and something that I've kind of done in the past to kind of get me around it is just instead of focusing on making something that looks good, I just focus on making. So whether that be drawing the same thing over and over again or drawing something that looks inherently bad, but it's still drawing, and just dedicating pages of sketchbooks or drawings on my iPad to just doodling whatever comes to mind, even if it's just squares or cubes, which I often draw a lot on my school assignments. Just if you continue drawing, eventually you're going to end up making something that you didn't know you could. And it's just a matter of just keep going, even if you don't want to. Just something small, because then you can still say you've done something. And I think that definitely like chips away at the art block, because a big part of the art block is just getting started.
So, we're gonna talk fandom a little bit now because I know you're really big into fandom. Who's your favorite character to draw?
I think it definitely depends on the month that you ask me, but right now I'd say Grian from well, he's a YouTuber. I was gonna say from Hermitcraft, but he's a part of a lot more now.
Hermitcraft is my favorite HBO Max series. I will say, big fan. I'm a big fan of Hermitcraft. I watch it sometimes on my television. It's really cool.
Yeah, Hermitcraft is great. I think it's a great place. Like, if somebody's just like getting into Minecraft content and they just want something that appeals to anyone, whether you know a lot about Minecraft or whether you don't know a lot about Minecraft or you like building or redstone, it's kind of just a conglomerate of everything and it's just a good time.
Do you think the fandom also ties into the enjoyment that people can get from Hermitcraft? Do you think people who are just getting into Minecraft can also enjoy Hermitcraft while also interacting with the fandom?
Absolutely. I think the fandom is the most important part of creating because at the end of the day, when you're creating something, you're making it for other people. It's a very giving type of profession. And the fandom holds up everything about that because then they go and make things based on that, or they go and talk about things about that, and they make friendships based on that. And it's a big kind of, it ties back into the reason why I really love creation because it's such a unifying experience. So I think that especially with the Hermitcraft fandom, it's extremely welcoming. So people who are just getting into Hermitcraft for the first time are welcomed by veterans of the Hermitcraft fandom. And it's really nice to see because in the world you might see so many people fighting against each other, but then they come together for these things that might seem minuscule.
But they don't feel minuscule to you or anyone else, do they?
Definitely not. They definitely feel like the world at times.
Yeah. What's your favorite interaction with the fandoms that you've happened to be in?
It definitely the artist community. because it's so amazing to see what people are able to do based on something that somebody else has created. And it's also just a really uplifting experience because everybody's so supportive of each other. And everybody's always doing like artist support chains or different community events that really just brings other people together and helps you meet new people.
Now, out of all the fandoms you happen to be in, especially for creators online, who's a creator that you look up to a lot from the fandoms you happen to be in?
Probably, like I said before, Jaden Animations and then also Grian, but also especially Good Times with Scar. He's a part of Hermitcraft as well, but he's a disabled content creator and he is so positive. And as somebody who also recently has started using mobility aid and in the future will need to go to a doctor to get things checked out, seeing how he has been able to accomplish so much despite the preconceptions that people have of disabled people and what they are supposedly capable of, it's extremely inspirational because he is so positive all the time and he's very uplifting and it just creates an excellent environment for everybody to be a part of. So to see somebody be able to do that, it makes me want to go and do that too.
I'm a big fan of Scar myself as well. I started watching him recently. Ah, peak man. I'm gonna be real.
Yeah, he's great and also extremely talented.
Oh, now what's a fan base that you're really happy that you were able to join?
Probably the Steam Universe fandom, just because it was kind of a big start for me, and also the show itself was really inspirational, and it was the first cartoon show I'd ever watched with queer representation. And a lot of kind of just, especially like artists, but also just a lot of people that I became connected to and helped me kind of understand the internet at a very early age came from the Steam Universe fandom, and it's a very core memory for me.
You think you would have been a different individual had you not gone into the Steven Universe community?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely feel like a lot of my traction online originally came from Steam Universe. It was definitely boosted by the Minecraft community, but it kind of started with Steam Universe because from Steam Universe I went to shows like OKKO Let's Be Heroes and um like Adventure Time and all of those shows, and those just had such long-lasting communities that I met so many people from them.
Right. So you're big, not only on the Hermitcraft, so far, SMP, but also the Life series of SMPs. What got you into that?
I got into that just because I have been a long time Green fan. I've been watching him since I want to say at least 2017, and most likely before that. That's just when YouTube says I just subscribed to him. Fun fact, actually, Green was the first person I ever subscribed to.
Oh,
Um,
sick.
and it was quite literally on the day that I was finally allowed to make an account for YouTube.
Ooh.
Um, so at the time, I had been watching his Hermitcraft series, and then he uploaded Third Life for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, and I got super into it, and I've been watching the Life series ever since.
Um, moving on. You recently created an animatic for YouTube. What was the process of creating that like?
So the beginning of my process was just the inspiration. I had known about the audio that I used for a while, and um, as I was reading the My Hero manga, it kind of like clicked for me like, oh, this could be something really funny. So I took the audio, I broke it down into phrases in my notes app, and then I kind of just sat for a while and I listened to it on loop and pictured in my mind what I wanted it to look like, and I wrote that down in my notes app. And then I transferred that to my drawing program, which I typically use my iPad, and I basically made the amount of frames I needed, and I wrote each phrase on each frame just manually. And then I went through one by one and drew it alongside the description of what I had pictured in my mind.
Do you see yourself creating more animatics as time goes on?
Absolutely. I think I probably have at least 12 different ones in my notes app right now that I want to make. It's just a matter of having the time to do it. I'm about to finish my junior year of high school, so I am pretty busy with looking at colleges right now, but since the summer's coming up, that's going to be a huge grind time for me.
Mm. Um, if you're planning any more, which you absolutely just confirmed that you are there any more animatics that in your head that you know for sure, like, are on the top of the list to be creating next?
Yeah, I actually, in my list, I made them as a list of like priority. I put them in order of priority. Um,
Mhm.
so there's a few more for My Hero. I have a few for Hermitcraft in the Life series. And then I also have a few for the original characters I had mentioned earlier to kind of give a little like teaser, I'd say, into the story behind that. And I've been developing kind of some ideas of animatics that don't involve being inspired by different audios around those characters that I could also do.
Hey, so where do you want to be with your art in like the next few years? Is this something you want to be doing for a lot of time?
Yes, so as I think I mentioned before, I would like to go to college to study animation, and I'd like to work as originally a storyboard artist and concept artist, but eventually someday I'd like to have my own cartoon. And so working long term would be ideal. So I see myself with my art being very confident in my art style and also having the basics down of fluid movement within animation because I understand the concept. It's just putting it into practice and refining that.
What's the end goal for all of this art stuff for you besides making a cartoon?
Just making people happy, making things that inspire others and make them happy because growing up seeing people create things and seeing people turn their art into unifying experiences with fandoms really inspired me because oftentimes I'd use art and cartoons and YouTube as an escape from everything around me, and I saw how other people were doing that. And it was kind of that moment for me of the next generation needs something like this, and I want to be a part of making that for them because I want to guarantee that it happens. So instead of saying, oh, other people will do it, I want to be a part of that process.
Now, other than inspiration and making people happy, what else do you want to achieve with your art in the future?
I think I'd like to see kind of just like development from myself and being able to express myself through my art as well. And being able to turn my thought processes and my emotions into something that is impactful, not only to others, but to myself, and being able to understand myself more and be confident in what I'm making, I think that'd be really powerful for me.
All right, so those are all of the questions I had. I'm sorry this was a little shorter than expected, but I wanted to just get a nice little episode out, and I had a great time talking with you about art.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming on. What I usually do at the end of these is I just allow the person I'm interviewing to just have the floor to promote themselves in any way. So if you'd like to, mic is yours.
sure. So you can find me on basically any platform. YouTube and Twitter are the biggest ones, but I'm also on Instagram. I'll be making a TikTok. And hopefully this summer, I'm going to open up commissions because you always need a little money.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm going to be creating a bunch of things soon. I really want to get off the floor because I used to kind of have a following and then I really kind of like let the bar drop. But I want to get back up there and I want to start making things for people again. So it'd be great if people would be interested in joining along for the journey.
Where can people find you? Like, what at can we find you at?
Oh, I moralize on basically everything. So EYEMORALIZE on literally everything. I don't change it anywhere.
And of course, as per usual, I'm meta64 at youtube.com/at meta64. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I'll be trying to get this a lot more consistent as the weeks go on. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Have a good one.